Welcome to Tailings Talks. In this three-part series, we'll cover critical aspects of tailings management and explore the ongoing balance between safety, sustainability, and operational stability in the industry. Let's dive into today's conversation.
Hi folks, my name is Ian McKechnie. I'm the lead product manager for Hatch's Tailings product, and I'm here today with Ralph, who will be exploring some topics relevant to our industry and speculating a bit about the future.
Thank you very much, Ian. I'm Ralph Davila. I'm the Global Director for the Tailings and Mine Closure Practice at Hatch. I sit at the office here in Mississauga, and we have several teams around the world working at Hatch with the mining industry mostly. Thank you for being with you today, and hopefully it goes well.
The mining industry and the tailings aspects of it are getting more complicated. There's always more to do, and there's a lot of demand for Hatch's services. What are some of the big things you're seeing that are complicating the world for tailings operators today?
Many things. I believe the mining industry has gone through turmoil, especially because tailings management was not really at the forefront in terms of the lines of defense of mining companies. There you had the issues with a trend of failures that had happened in the mining industry on cycles, but two main failures and catastrophic failures for that matter, and very large losses of lives happened in Brazil. As you know, it was with Samarco and the Brumadinho failures. It was a realization at the time that not everything was running well for many mining companies. The key things with these aspects is that in a mining company, there's obviously a trend of what you want to produce, what you want to make sure that you put in the market. Obviously, it is a business at the end of the day, but it is a business to be able to manage that in a holistic way. If you do not do that, if it is not just about the production, as many decades ago we realized in the mining industry, but also taking care of your environment, taking care of the stakeholders, it's going to be difficult for a mining operator to really come well before society and say that they are doing things right. And that's where tailings management plays a role.
Now, you mentioned resources, and definitely one of the resources that's short for people on mines is time. You're called upon a lot to solve difficult problems, and so is your team. From the individuals you're speaking to on the ground, what are like the biggest problems they're bringing to you to say, Ralph, like I need help with this, and I need to it's too much for me. What's the biggest thing that they tend to bring to you?
Maybe I'll put a twist into that. What my clients, the clients of this group, brought to us actually is the worries, the things that don't let them sleep at night, making sure that everything is actually working out so that they feel more comfortable. And there's some level of being comfortable in business. I think there are so many aspects of control. When you talk about mine waste management, of course, and this is not just a practice of what we call tailings at Hatch. Mine waste management, it is the waste rock side. And our mining practice actually takes care of that mostly when it's just purely mine waste. But then when it comes to tailings, at Hatch at least, we understand it not just on the storage aspect. And many operators think, I think wrongly, that it is just about the geotechnical containment, which is not. Okay, at Hatch we have the vision of looking at it on a holistic manner. So, if the operator tells me that has a problem, it just not starts and ends at the storage containment site. It starts as thinking where they started to dewater tailings, for example, how they transported the tailings. Yes, how they stored it, but at the end of the day, how they manage their water, either by deficit or by super habit, by excess of water, it becomes a problem because the mills need water, the camps need water, And where the water is coming and where it's lost the most is with tailings management. When you mix tailings with the waste rock, then tailings becomes the risk. Either because they're adjacent to the facilities, either because they had to be commingled, but they become the risk. And let's not forget the geochemical aspect. It is not as common in many of the saprolitic ore bodies, but certainly in the hard rock mines, you have acid generation, you have metal leaching, and those are very key aspects in mine waste management and tailings management itself, because those are the aspects that will stay forever and ever, for a very long time, okay, anyway. So that is where you come from, and yes, your operator is going to be there, and these are people that may not stay for the whole life, and we are not going to stay for the whole life of the structure itself. So they do care about these situations, but they themselves think, how can I deal with things that I inherited? How I'm going to be dealing with these same matters, because I'm going to be letting the next generation to take over me, that same problem. Okay, so all in all, it is not just a matter of resources. It's a matter of how to deal intergenerationally within the organization, and also, I didn't say it, but dealing with between the several teams that the operator has within the organization, and many have different interests.
I'd like to pivot slightly. So people have lots on their plates. They're focusing on many things, and the stakes are high. So what technologies do you see coming in to help out people in those situations, to help make their lives a little bit easier?
Well, I have to go back to the beginning of my career for that. I believe that it was at that time that all the instrumentation aspects were started to come up. You know, I do remember even working with our technicians in trying to come up with our own Queso-Grande piezometers, all right, and actually using the winter to build them so that we could install them in the summer season. Now it's not a matter of a lack of opportunities or where to find good vibrating wire piezometers or any other type of geotechnical instrumentation. However, matters are a bit more complicated. It is about measuring flows around a tailings facility. It's about measuring groundwater in a tailings facility, which is quite difficult. And in this past 3 decades or more, what I've seen is about sensing, remote sensing. Several failures have taught us that you can use the satellite framework that we have around the world to actually capture imagery that, if interpreted well, it will give you some leeways of maybe deformations, analysis. We work in many areas around the world that we can actually measure climate change today, the warming of oceans, the formation of hurricanes, the possibility of being more accurate with the earthquakes recordings and the type of earthquake recordings. And it is quite relevant because a lot of our metals today are sourced from areas that are seismically prone and hurricane prone. They're always been there, okay? However, the key thing is bringing all that type of information together into a centralized way that you can actually direct and use that kind of information. Today is possible. But at the same time, what I've seen with this is the cluttering of the systems with too much data. Data is not information. You use information to make sure that you take this, you take and or make and take the decisions. But when it comes to data, that link has become very cumbersome to many. And I can see many operators finding difficulties in really making sure that they can stream line their data so that they could come up with information.
Absolutely. Look, I locked in early on to one of your statements, which is around if interpreted correctly. So with the expanding scope for tailings management and the increasingly novel forms of data coming through,
Yeah.
I mean, you've looked at probably many INSAR reports in your life, but they're rather daunting, and they have a lot of noise in them and a lot of information. But if you're an operations manager, you say, well, here's a plot, there's a lot of red. It's like, well, am I in trouble? Red means bad. I should go do something. But then what do I do? So from your perspective, I mean, what differentiates a good system that helps bring the signal out of the noise versus systems that might be less suited for the task? What are the key aspects of a good system that helps out rather than it's just there and participates?
Quite interesting question. I would say that for us, the system shouldn't be working by itself. Whatever it is, you cannot take out the human factor into it. I do believe that the best system will be the one that works in tune with the people that are actually proficient in making sure that they declutter, that they look to data in a way that can create simple and transparent information and make sure that work in sync. Okay, so to make sure to build layer upon layer of many different systems within an organization just to source some pieces of data from here and there, it's not going to work out. I think to make it simple, the different groups within the organization of the operator will have to come together and make sure that they have to rely on pieces of data that can actually create value for the information, that can work together with their consultants and make sure that the designing is meeting intent at the end of the day. That's what it counts. If it meets intent, if it makes sure that everything is going to be working from the dewatering circuits to the transport, to the storage, to the water management of the whole mining operation, then you are making sure that you are working well. But it is system and people working together in a way that they can understand and the way that actually can convey and communicate to society, to the stakeholders, to their board of directors, to everybody, and even to the regulators more, because the regulators themselves, you know what they are doing. It's happening here in Canada, it's happening in South America to my knowledge. The regulators want to have access directly to the data of the instrumentation. They don't want to have any kind of filters. They want to make sure that nobody's lying to them. We are reaching to a point in which we have more data, but there is more reasons for doubt, you see, and that's where I think we need to make sure that we have a transparent way of doing things. And if you clutter that with data, it's going to become cloudier and cloudier.
Absolutely. You've even got ahead of my next question, which is around the risks of using Excel as a stand-in for systems, but I think you just answered it. If you envision a world where regulators and communities nearby have access to your data, are you going to give them your raw Excel files? Are you going to give them your working spreadsheets? Or do you need something a bit more polished? I know I would have been very uncomfortable with people seeing my calculations back in the day. Maybe engineers of now are better than I was, but it feels like that system you're describing where you need something that kind of shapes the world and then can present the level of detail necessary to each person using it. But I love that connection to the verticality of the organization. You know, tailings is so rare in that it's one of the very few topics that gets attention all the way up the chain by design because of the criticality of that risk and the importance of managing it correctly.
It is. You've touched a good point at the end of your question, which is tailings management, as you say, because of the risk, because of the consequence at stake in many of these mining sites that we work, that at the beginning maybe they were alone and left in the wilderness, but as time goes, towns actually start to bubble around them. And addressing your specific question before that, how we make sure that we deal with that aspect in a true fashion with Excel tables. I don't think that especially today with the advent of artificial intelligence, we are every time left more to something that can be actually we make sure that it can be controlled and known every step of its way. Excel tables have been quite a good tool for engineers, and we'll continue to use them. There is no question about that, because where an engineer starts putting their thoughts is in a kind of framework that he himself or herself can understand things.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. We hope it shared useful perspectives and sparked new ideas for advancing safety and sustainability in tailings management. Be sure to tune in for the next episode, where we will continue exploring the challenges and solutions shaping the future of our industry.